Hey guys, it's David. This is the 1-year anniversary episode for Look Both Ways, so a big thank you for being part of our journey. Given the occasion, Wes and I revisited a couple previous podcast topics where our thinking has since evolved. We also delved into new and troubling research about tire pollution, a danger that has largely flown under the radar until recently. As always, show notes and previous episodes are available on our website, lookbothwayspodcast.com. You can also get in touch with us there. And if you enjoyed this episode, maybe tell a friend about it. As always, thanks for listening.
All right, welcome to Look Both Ways with David and Wes, pragmatic conversations about all things transportation. We are recording live stream on YouTube, and we are just hitting our 1-year anniversary, and I am Wes, and with me is...
I am David.
You are David.
Happy anniversary.
So happy anniversary to you. It's surprisingly gone quickly this year of doing this podcast, but I've had a good time.
It's been a lot of fun. I kind of can't believe that it has been a year. This is what, episode 24 or 25 now in that year? I don't even know.
I think it's 26.
Seriously? Is it 26? That regular? We didn't take time off for like the holidays or something?
Well, it's actually 26 plus 2 bonus episodes. So
oh, geez. What do I know? All right. It's it's been flying. No. I did not realize that I had so much to say to whoever's out there listening about transportation.
I mean, the way it works, though, we kind of chat with each other, and it feels like people are kind of overhearing us talking at a bar about transportation has been our vibe. But the way that's worked is let me learn a lot about you over this last year, because, I mean, I knew you a little bit going into this, but obviously a lot better now. So,
by the way, people, I was just going to say to people, it's worth maybe remembering, like we met, people don't realize we didn't know each other much at all. And we really, like, the podcast was born in Toronto, where you and I were both speaking at an event and just sort of like bantering on stage. I was just in Toronto last week reliving some of those memories, and I was really like it. Didn't you bring it up at like literally 1:30 in the morning, and it like while we were both half drunk?
Those folks up in Toronto like to go hard, and we joined them for one evening, and you did again last week. So after some time, and I will say, after we did that one session, we were on stage together, and somebody did say to me, like, you guys should have a podcast. You guys had a good rapport together. And I think that was in the back of my mind, and it came to the front of my mind after a few drinks that evening. And I did mention that at some point. But I mean, I think neither of us took it seriously. And like a month later, you emailed me you're like, are you serious? Like, should we do this? And my response was like, not really, but yeah, let's try it.
Yeah. Well, I just thought about him, like, the world really needs two middle-aged white guys talking to each other
on a podcast
stuff. Yeah, there's just not enough of that, don't you think?
There's not enough. Yeah, I mean, it's
exactly. I'm glad we can fill that gap.
Representation in
totally.
In the world and this stuff. So I guess my question for you, though, is like, over this course of this year, are there some unexpected things that you've learned about me? Because I have a few things I've learned about you, I think, over the last year. If you want me to go first.
Yeah, and so I can go. I'm a little antsy about what the heck you're going to say, but I mean, the big one for me, and the big one for me is, for those who listen regularly, you can probably guess it, which is that I did not realize that you were the sports maniac that you are, because you were making all kinds of, like, in your book, you make like pop culture references and like movie references, music references, if I remember right. But I don't remember a lot of sports ball stuff. And I remember like when, you and I talk off of the podcast quite a bit. And there was one time a few months ago where I made some remark about where Bill Russell, the legendary NBA player, played in college. I don't know how it fit in a conversation. And it was like in milliseconds. You're like, no, that's not right. That's not right. No, he was at, what is it, like UCSF or whatever the heck he was?
Yeah, he went to University of San Francisco.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you knew immediately. But it was actually the tone of like disdain in your voice was just something that I'll carry with me. I did not realize that you are as deeply into not just current sports, but historical sports as you are.
There are some references to sports in the book. I mean, one that comes to mind is I do talk about Kobe Bryant had this little ESPN show. It was just online. He would do these like 5-minute breakdowns of current players' games. So this was after Kobe had retired and obviously before he passed away. And one of the players he talked about was Ben Simmons. He was the player, used to be on the Sixers, and he was not a good offensive player, even though he was the number one pick and had sort of all the skill sets. So Kobe talked about how predictable he is. And his point was, if it's predictable, it's preventable. And that was my point about some of the transportation crashes. Like, we know, given our designs, that we have certain kinds of so-called human errors happen. So if those human errors are predictable, then they should be preventable. So I use that kind of linkage, but I try not to let too much of my nonsense overlap the bigger points about road safety.
I didn't even remember that part, but it makes total sense. Ben Simmons, he's kind of a head case, isn't he?
He's a professional fisherman.
Professional fisherman. Okay, then I stand by my statement.
The NBA. I think he got traded a couple times in there, and his playing time started dwindling, as did his salary. So he just kind of walked away, and now is a fisherman full time. Even though he's still pretty young, like he's probably younger than half the guys in the NBA. But he's
I remember. Yeah, I actually am familiar with that story a tiny bit. By the way, did you see? Speaking of cool post NBA. Sort of careers that do involve a little bit of what we talk about. Greg Ostertag, that center for, I believe, the Jazz, is now a mayor of a small town in Texas.
I did not hear that, but that is fantastic.
I'm happy for him. I think that's great. Yeah.
All right. Good for Greg.
Hopefully he cares about road safety. Texas really needs the help. Sorry. Anyway, that's what I would say.
Yeah, no, I had a much bigger list for unexpected things I've learned about you over the last year.
I'm really excited to hear it.
Well, I think the first one, I think I naively would have pigeonholed you as a journalist, and that is not what you are. That doesn't really do justice to who you are and what you do. So that was naive of me. But I've also unexpectedly noticed your eclectic taste in things like the drinks, your shirts, cat names, all of which I very much enjoy.
I just feel like being normal is boring. So yeah, I enjoy weird alcohols and strange Slavic novels and foreign films, and I'm happy to have a cat named Waffle House. We may get a second cat, which will be named not, Felix. It'll be something a little more out there. I'll let you know.
I was also surprised when you said that I think your favorite 80s movie was The Karate Kid. Not because that's a bad choice by any means. It's an amazing movie, but more because I think if I had to guess what your favorite 80s movie was, I probably would have guessed you'd be keen on something more in the John Hughes 80s movies category.
Why would you say that?
I don't know. I feel like you would have been like The Breakfast Club or Weird Science or...
Those were fine. They were almost like 16 Candles.
I don't know. Like, I feel like that would have been more in your vein, like Ferris Bueller or
Ferris Bueller. I enjoyed. Those were a little early for me. I'm a little bit younger than you.
But I'm totally here for your love of Daniel-san and Mr. Miyagi. So.
Oh, it's so good. It just gives and gives. I watched that on a flight not that long ago, and there's just so many layers of depth. I will never I will not stand any ill words spoken about Mr. Miyagi, which, by the way, is an excellent cat name, Mr. Miyagi, or anything about that movie. Although the later ones can say whatever you want. No, actually, if you want to talk about sports, there were some great sports movies that from my childhood that you could have mentioned. Like Major League, I freaking loved. Remember that one?
I do. That's a great movie. Charlie Sheen,
like a bunch of people. Isn't Tom Berenger in it, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah. Great comedy, not it doesn't get the respect it deserves. Bob Uecker's in it.
That is a great movie. I do really enjoy Major League. And
yeah, I'm just trying to show that I know something about the sports ball. Willie Mays Hayes. That was Wesley Snipes, wasn't it?
Yes. Then he got recast for Major League 2.
Do you know that the home run hitter from, I think, Jamaica is in that game? He's like the Allstate insurance dude.
Yes, he is.
I don't know his name, but I think it was the Allstate insurance dude.
I don't know his real name, but he always talked to himself in the third person, like,
Yeah. And he had like voodoo. It was really kind of racist. Yeah. He had like voodoo stuff in the locker room. And it was weird. It's a different time. Different times. What can I say?
Let's see. No, I had more. I'm not even done yet.
Jesus Christ, Wes.
Now I've also been fascinated even just by your book writing process because it was so different than the way I did mine. Like I stayed away from even doing safety research while I was writing my book because I didn't want one to seep into the other. But you, on the other hand, you've been fine talking about congestion pricing on the podcast. You've actually been writing totally separate articles from your book on congestion pricing and putting those out there. So to me, that's been fascinating to watch. But
we'll see how that works out. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe your approach is better. My book's not out yet, so to hold your judgments.
The thing I've probably most enjoyed, which has been a little bit unexpected, is the things I've learned about you. So, I think if you follow David on social media or LinkedIn, places like that, you see, for the most part, it's positive. He's kind of highlighting good research, but he is not afraid to call out dumb things and dumb people very directly and do so even like some of the articles you write. Like we had the one episode where you talked about how everybody was mad at you because you had that Bloomberg article on robotaxi safety. And you were more than happy to just follow what you believe and what the research says and just write an article that you know is going to cause a lot of people to send you hate mail. Or even, I think it was the very first episode or maybe the second episode where you just like, Mandami has the worst idea ever, fare free transit. That is just dumb. But my favorite is when that neurosurgeon wrote the New York Times op-ed and basically was trying to say that Waymo or robotaxis are just so goddamn safe that we have to just drop everything and all get in one right now. And I had to like dig into the archives of Blue Sky to find this, but you started off your Skeet or Bleed or whatever it is with saying this op-ed is truly terrible. And then you just called out not only the bad points that he was making in the article, but who he was. Like, he's a venture capitalist. He's not a transportation professional. It was amazing. And I love that you are not afraid and actually seem to like to go hard at these people when they say dumb stuff.
Well, I try not to punch down ever, but if there's stuff that's really bad and I can punch laterally or punch up and it's warranted and I'm not sure who else is going to do it, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like, especially on social media, I have something of a following. I'm not saying I'm certain there's certainly many with a lot bigger ones, but I feel like I try to make access of the reach if I am so called. But yeah, thank you. I was worried this was going to turn into a roast.
No,
which was not the intent here, but I will take that as a compliment.
A lot of people would write like, hey, I respectfully disagree with this article. Like, here's some other points. And you're not wasting time on that. You're just like, this article is dumb. I can't believe they even published this moron writing that. Like, I love it. So kudos to you.
I try there. Yeah, you can sort of become like a curdled, cynical person if all you're doing is sort of just blasting lots of other people, which you can see online.
Oh, you're not, though.
People like that. I don't want to ever be that.
Back like 7 months, because it turned out this article is from early December. So I'm going through like positive post after positive post, like great study, and then every now and again you're like, F this guy. Like,
I mean, once in a while, F this guy feels appropriate, or even F this company.
Yep.
F this policy. I try to choose carefully, but sometimes it's the right thing to say. I'm working on a story now about F this policy, which we're going to get to, I think, a little bit later in the in the episode. But thank you. I was concerned where you were going with this, Wes, but that was very, very pleasant. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So that was unexpected, and I'm just saying I enjoy it. So keep it up.
Well, good. All right. Well, I will keep it going. We have year 2 and beyond to fill with hot takes. So right. There's plenty more where that stuff came from. What can I say? All right. Should we delve into actual topics we're supposed to be talking about?
Let's do it. Word of the street.
And what is word on the street? You want to tee it up a little bit for the newbies?
This is where we discuss a transportation issue in the news. So this week, you'll kick it off, but we'll be discussing tire pollution and some of the recent research that's suggesting that is much more dangerous than I think a lot of people think or had assumed.
Yeah. So I'm actually really excited to talk about this for a few minutes because this is something I've thought about for a few years and I've been really interested in. I think it deserves a lot more attention than it gets. I don't think people think about what happens to the little bits and tiny fragments of tires that are going to erode naturally as you're driving through a road or on a highway. Really, the story here begins with some, I think, frankly, like heroic research that was done. See, I'm being complimentary of researchers again, just like you were saying. That was done in this case, actually, by I think it was biologists at the University of Washington, if memory serves, where they were investigating the reasons why coho salmon had seen a population collapse in the Puget Sound area. And this was about 5 years ago, I want to say. And they were able to conclusively demonstrate that the reason why this species of salmon was just dying off was the minuscule concentrations of a chemical called 6-ppd quinone, which is really from tires, from rubber, mostly from tires, also a little bit from like artificial turf, but it's really tires. So there's a chemical called 6-ppd or a compound, I should say, that sort of holds the tire together. I had the experience when I was in Akron, Ohio, sort of like the tire capital of the country. Someone actually showed me what a tire looks like when it doesn't have 6-ppd. The thing just falls apart. So this chemical has been in tires for decades to keep it relatively cohesive, and it becomes 6-ppd quinone when it's exposed to ozone in the air. And when it rains and little bits and pieces are brought into through stormwater or into streams and waterways where they can concentrate, and it's really just killed off certain species of fish in the Pacific Northwest. So I should note also that finding led to Washington State and California to launch sort of regulatory investigations into toxicity. The EPA in 2024 announced an exploration of potential toxicity. And I had always heard that there was risk that this could be really bad for people too. I wrote a couple articles in The Atlantic and in Slate about this over the last several years. And then just a couple of weeks ago, there was a new study that emerged. We're going to link to it in the show notes. That these are Chinese scientists who found, and I'm going to quote an article that was written about their research, that 6-ppdq, as it's known, causes oxidative stress, which is basically wear and tear, as well as inflammation, while also reducing how effectively individual cells communicate with one another. These factors strongly correlate to the development of early stage Alzheimer's. So now we're getting into a new sort of stage of research where it seems likely that tire pollution is having effects on humans, not just aquatic species. So on that note, I will turn things over to you.
So it's interesting. So I teach a sustainable transportation class. It's one I started up when I first got here like 16, 17 years ago. And like one of the points I try to make early in the semester, especially in the beginning, is like if we switch over to like EVs, I think a lot of people think that just solves like our sustainability problems. Like environmental sustainability, we're fine. And the bigger picture point is it's not even close. Like we're still going to have traffic congestion and a lot of the elements that come with that, road safety, like so on and so forth. But like this is one of them that's become coming more to the forefront over the last like 5 or 6 years, like the tire pollution thing. Because I think a lot of us have had the experience where you bring your car in, to get maybe your tires rotated or something, and like, the guy will have this little thing, the old penny test where you take Abe Lincoln's head, turn it upside down, and if you can see the top of his scalp, that means you need new tires. Mm-hmm. But when you think more about that, like, well, what actually happened here? Like, where did the tire go that used to be there where they was hiding Abe Lincoln's head. And it goes somewhere. And it doesn't just evaporate and disappear into nothingness.
Yep.
It goes into streams. It goes into roadbeds. And it's not innocuous either. And that's more what we're learning. So I think, this complicates the clean EV story or that sort of stuff. But it does so in a way that isn't just about, like crumbs on the side of the road. It is much more complicated than that. And I don't know, it is a much bigger deal than I think it's been given credit for, despite the fact that it feels like we've known this for at least a half decade, and now we're just knowing more and more now. So it's important.
Well, my understanding from the researchers I spoke to while reporting on this a few years ago was that it's actually really hard to evaluate the impact of these chemicals. Yeah. It's part of why it's taken so long to do so. Like, we've been using tires for over a century that are made of rubber, as well as other compounds. And, being able to isolate the impact of particular compounds in those tires over time on particular species, really hard, much harder than, frankly, tailpipe emissions, which we got our head around pretty quickly from a regulatory perspective. And by the way, 6-PPD is not necessarily the only compound that is hazardous. It could be other stuff in tires that we don't know about. And I think that the growing concerns around 6-PPD-Q really are likely to lead to a lot more researchers figuring out how to do assessments of other chemicals and examining ways in which 6-PPD-Q could be affecting humans in ways that we've never thought about. But this is I think it's really important to say, it's very early days. It's hard to overstate how little we know about how tire pollution impacts the world around us, as well as human health.
So you mentioned that this compound has been in tires for decades, but the University of Washington study, they talked about how there was that recent collapse in the salmon population. So I don't know if they mentioned why it seems to be happening more recently, even though the compound's been in there for decades. Is it because now with cars getting bigger too, that we're getting more wear and tear on tires because cars are heavier, cars are bigger? Is that?
I don't know. That's an obvious question, and it's been I don't remember looking into that. It could be that there's also just a concentration level you have to hit in order for the health impacts to begin, and maybe it's just little bit by little bit, year over year. But I'm just to be honest, I'm speculating. Yeah. I don't know. But that's a very reasonable question. I know that this was a really careful study that University of Washington did, and you can tell it's comprehensive because the U.S. Tire Manufacturers Association, USTMA, they didn't actually really disagree with the findings. They said, look, this is just one species, and look, it's really important to the tires not fall apart. But I don't recall anybody really challenging the biologists for what they concluded.
That's good. So, I think the bigger picture though is that the answer is not simply just we need to make better tires, right? This is just another example of traffic harm being bigger than what's in my crash database or air pollution. It still is going to lead to wanting fewer vehicle miles traveled and lighter vehicles and slower speeds.
Yeah.
And all that sort of stuff is still useful for this too. And
that's right. Yeah. I think a couple of points. First of all, the obvious way of addressing this is just drive less. It's yet another reason why EVs are not a panacea, why we need more density, we need more transit, we need to provide people with alternative ways of getting around without tires. That said, there is a little bit of silver lining in this particular issue where there are a couple potential solutions. Over the last year, I believe it is, a couple companies have come forward with potential 6-PPD alternatives, which has been a big priority for the tire companies. I've spoken with tire executives who told me privately, look, we had no idea. This is not something that we had ever understood could be problematic for the environment at all. So we want to fix it too. maybe I'm being spun a line there, but the people I talked to, I have no reason to think that. I think they were probably being honest with me. So there are new chemicals that are potentially going to become available that can help. And the alternative too is to basically have sort of like a filtering layer in roadways that can capture some of this stuff before it goes into the runoff. But how do you retrofit, like, however many millions of miles of roadway we have? God knows how long that would take. So there's no easy fix here. Particularly given that, how long are people going to be using tires that are already made and and being manufactured? Even if you flipped a switch and there's no 6 ppd anymore, as of tomorrow, we're going to be worsening this for a while still.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe we're going to at some point find some like old memorandums from 70 years ago, like when the oil companies clearly knew about global warming way back when, and purposely was trying to dismiss the research on it over time.
That's right. Same with smog, by the way. It
could happen here too, but who knows? I mean, I guess at this point we can take them at their word, but I think, a lot of these companies like, Roundup, like the cancer causing stuff and the chemicals that kill plants, like that is more obvious. Like this one is interesting because I think it's become, this tire wear has been something that we just haven't really thought about. And
that's right.
The idea that this might be associated with Alzheimer's is all of a sudden something that is going to be more personal for people. And they can think about, like there's a stronger connection that I think will help this become a bigger issue with this latest study, as opposed to just the salmon population dying, when that kind of stuff happens all the time when some company dumps something in a river. And
that's right.
Yeah.
No, this issue is not going away. Like there's sort of like the societal freak out over microplastics, which is ongoing. Well, what's one of the biggest sources of microplastics? Tires. There's been studies showing that the majority of microplastics in certain parts of like the Bay Area coast, like on the off the ocean, the Pacific, from tires. Which makes sense.
End up finding out that the tire pollution is far worse than the tailpipe emissions ever were. Like this could be a bigger deal than what a lot of people have been focused on for decades.
No, I think that's really right. It's natural, since we've talked about tailpipe emissions so much for so long. That's what we think about when we think about how cars foul the environment. Doesn't mean that's the only way. It really doesn't. And for those of you who care about how or listeners who care about how cars and our transportation network affects the environment, I'd strongly encourage you to follow this one closely, because we're in the early days of understanding it.
In the chat, Gary is asking if bicycle tires have the same concerning compounds. I would assume yes, but I would think it's less of a concern just because they're so much smaller, the weights are less, like things.
And
like
they're
that.
used a lot less. Like how many miles are you biking in a year versus how many miles you're driving, and how much pollution is created from each one. Gary, if this is what you care about, bike, don't drive.
Yeah. Total vehicle miles traveled is, multiple orders of magnitude any higher than bicycle miles traveled for our country. Like it's not even in the same ballpark.
Yeah. Well, and frankly, if there's people, we have a lot of grad students who listen to the podcast, I've learned, which is great. We're glad to have you guys. And for those of you who are thinking about compelling research topics, I think this is a huge one where there's just so much we don't know. So if you're interested, I'd love to see what you learn.
And this is tangible. Like you see this, and that's what makes it feel different than like the tailpipe emissions. Like that's always been, something we know about, but we just have to kind of take the science at its word. Like this it feels much more tangible and something that is in need of more research. So I'd be happy to see more on this, and we'll find out what happens. But this is concerning, to say the least.
What's encouraging to me, I just had a long conversation with an environmental advocate or an attorney doing, I would consider, really good stuff, trying to find legal avenues to protect the environment here in DC. We have a lot of people like that here in DC. And he was telling me that this issue of tire pollution has become, in a matter of like 3 years, one of the hottest transportation topics in environmental advocacy, which is great. I think it should be. And I'm glad to see it getting the attention that I think, or starting to get the attention that it deserves. Maybe it deserves even more attention than it gets, but I think it is breaking into popular sort of consciousness. Belatedly, but better late than never.
Yeah, no, it's hard to disagree with that. So, yeah, I'm curious to see where this one goes. All right, so time for Roundabout?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so this week, the thinking was we'd do something a little bit different, given that this is the 1-year anniversary of the show. And what we wanted to do is revisit a topic where each of us chose a topic that we've changed our thinking on, at least to some extent, or has evolved on over the course of the year. So I think you're up first, David.
Oh, okay. And for me, that topic is abundance in transportation. And I think at least a couple episodes I've talked about abundance and shared what it could mean for transportation and been relatively positive on it. And for those who don't know, abundance is basically this concept that a couple of journalists, Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson, really sort of catch fire a year ago, or a year and a half ago. The idea being that we need to, if you're on the left half of the spectrum politically, we should be not just looking to spend more money on the stuff that we want societally. We should be finding ways to spend those dollars in better ways to get more bang for the buck and to get regulations that become overly onerous out of the way. It's been a big thing in like the YIMBY movement for housing, for example, which is great. And in transportation, there's been a lot of talk about like the high cost of various like investments in transit and building highways. And I've written several articles trying to sort of like guide that dialogue, which I think could be constructive. And I increasingly think that this direction of discourse is more problematic than I had realized, potentially distracting and even counterproductive. And let me explain why. Sorry, I'm going to give a bit of a monologue here, but I think first to think about it tactically, in transportation, where a lot of the abundance people focus is on transit. Everybody wants to see more transit, like make the investments in transit be more efficient. There was just a recent playbook around abundant transportation that an organization called the Institute for Fiscal Progress put out. People can find it online if they're curious. And the ideas are things like, let's reduce the number of cut-throughs or connective tunnels in new subway tunnels. And let's revise procurement so that buses cost less to purchase. And it's not like these are bad ideas. I think they're good ideas. But I don't know, Wes, I've been reading articles in the last couple of weeks about how Milwaukee is currently on the verge of cutting its bus service by 25%. TriMet is already shrinking its transit service. Miami is on the verge of doing so. BART could undergo catastrophic cuts in the Bay Area. Transit in much of this country is on the verge of going through a catastrophic reduction in service. And as you and I both know, Wes, like we've talked about this before, if when you cut service, you lose riders and you do not get them back. They will get cars. They're gone for good. And the abundance movement, as it talks about like how to buy cheaper buses, I'm like, guys, this is just not where we should be applying our brain power right now. It feels to me like we're coming upon a guy who's having a heart attack, and we're responding by giving him advice on how to do more exercise and how to eat better. Like, not a bad thing to do in general. It can be constructive, but for God's sake, save the guy first. Get him to a hospital. Right now, we're going through an existential moment in the United States with transit. And what we really need is to fund it and to at the local or regional level or state level, because the feds are not coming to the rescue. Because if we don't do that, I don't really care how expensive a bus costs, because you're going to have nobody riding your service. And before I get off my soapbox here, I want to make one other point, which is about the strategic side of abundance in transportation. because there was a convening a few weeks ago. I mean, it's very confusing what abundance means in transportation at large. People say, "Oh, it's just about transit, more efficient, more transit. We don't want more efficient, more highways and cars. That's not what we talk about." I'm like, well, what's the economic? What's the logical argument there? I don't see it. So there was an abundance in transportation conference a few weeks ago in Chicago, Wes. I wasn't there, but I know some people who were. One of them told me that there were hours of discussion about what the definition of abundant transportation should be. Nobody could answer it. There was no agreement reached. And I think that's emblematic because ultimately, Wes, I increasingly believe that the fundamental problem we have in transportation in this country is not that it's inefficient. It's that we have our head in the ground about the negative externalities from cars and the implicit subsidies from cars that we simply don't address. And that is just not an issue that abundance really engages with, in my experience. So, and if we're not going to do that, I worry that we're actually sort of like we're not doing things that are inherently bad with the abundant transportation stuff I see, but we are missing the forest for the trees, and we're not addressing the biggest problems that we have, either short-term tactical or longer-term strategic in this country. A few people have told me this and have warned me about this over the last year. I sort of discussed it with them, and I didn't brush them aside, but I said, I don't know. I think it could be better than you're giving it credit. And I increasingly realized that their criticisms were valid. And I think that I maybe gave a little bit too many benefits of the doubt with this whole discourse in transportation. I'm done.
See if my microphone's still working here.
I did warn you it was going to be a little monologue. This is sort of like my confession.
So I read the book Abundance probably more than a year ago, but it's hard to disagree with like some of the basic premise. Like for decades, there's been a big focus on like how do we prevent government from doing bad stuff, like especially in terms of environmental things. We put in all these rules and regulations, which NEPA, can be good, but they can also be used for bad. And because of it, we definitely have a delivery problem on some things. Like the big example they give is high-speed rail in California.
Sure.
Like we just can't deliver things like that, infrastructure like that, anywhere close to the same way that other countries are doing so, both in terms of time and in terms of money. So, that kind of stuff is hard to disagree with. And like the examples, you talked about trains and buses, but the same thing happens with like fire trucks. Like these fire marshals are getting these very specialized fire trucks that cost way more than they should because they want these like little specialized things for their particular city when we could be buying them in bulk and getting them much cheaper. Same would go with trains. If cities could all say like, oh, so I'll get the same trains, we can order them at much cheaper, right? So that kind of stuff is hard to disagree with. But I think you're right. Like where it gets lost is turning that message into like a political policy guideline. Like how do we use that? Because it can be used for bad in transportation. Like what would abundance mean when it comes to like the highways? Like we need more highway lanes? Like I don't want that.
Yeah, I think I spoke with I did a story about that particular issue 6 months ago, I remember. But I think, there's a limited amount of political attention and activist capacity around transit, for example, which is usually what a lot of the abundance transportation people care most about. And I just find myself scratching my head when I hear people say, well, what we most need is to have more efficient subway construction practices. How many places in the US are building subways right now?
Yeah. I mean,
and how many places are on the verge of losing bus service potentially permanently?
Oh, I mean, you can add Denver to the list. There are proposals out now to cutting back on, some of the most popular routes in the system, like including the 16th Street free ride that goes from Union Station all the way across downtown. And 3 of the 4 proposals, I believe, they're eliminating that service, and people are freaking out here. But they have huge budget constraints that they're trying to deal with. So
that's what we have to figure out. No, I actually, there's a guy I like a lot who works in abundance transportation stuff. Because people who work in this stuff are not dumb and they're not ill-intentioned. I'm just challenging that this is where our energy should be going. And I asked, and I said, it just feels like, we're facing a transit crisis in the US. does it really make sense to be talking about how to deliver everything more efficiently right now? And he said, well, if we can do it, if we succeed in making it more efficient, we'll get more support for providing the subsidies that we need to maintain service. And I want to believe that, but it's not 1993 anymore. We don't have a whole lot of Republicans who are really just fiscal conservatives and good governance types. I just don't, I've not seen any evidence that more efficient transit broadens the political base of support. So I don't know, maybe people write in and give me examples that I've missed. But without that, I'm like, why are we focusing on this right now? We should be building coalitions to get state governments to ensure that we don't see a hemorrhage of service in places like Milwaukee or Denver or the Bay Area.
Right. So you're suggesting that transit is like the guy dying on the side of the road that needs an ambulance and not.
Right. I mean, am I wrong? Like literally 25% cut in Milwaukee. I don't want to be like hair on fire unnecessarily, but a 25% service reduction is catastrophic for a transit system.
So I agree with the idea behind abundance of like we need to do better with like the fundamentals. Like if we do better with the fundamentals, then those things will be cheaper, will be faster. But
eventually,
people perceive the abundance argument as we need to build more and we need to build faster, period. And yes, it'd be great if we could build more subways and more trains, but like you said, that's not happening very often or in very many cities. But if you take that to start building everything, like yes, maybe more housing, but more highways, more parking, we don't want that. More autonomous vehicles. Depends, right?
Well, and that's something that in the abundance book they say like, oh, wouldn't it be great to have abundant AVs? Like, well, not necessarily. Let's actually stop and think for a second before we just throw open the barn doors.
So, I mean, the transportation piece of abundance, it really forces the question, like abundance of what?
Yep.
And abundance for whom? And abundance at what cost? Like where should we putting our money into what baskets? And like you can't just fire hose and do everything at once. So it forces some choices that I think the simplification of abundance and the way it's and what it's turned into isn't letting us do. And I think that's why you're getting, people shrugging their shoulders when you're asking like what basic questions should be. Like, what does it mean? Abundance? What are you talking about? Like,
I mean, some of the smartest people I've asked that question to say, oh, we should have an abundance of access. And I actually wrote about that in a story a year ago. Okay, great. Is that really a rallying cry that's going to, I mean, that might resonate at like UC Davis among the grad students there. Getting far beyond that, I don't know. Yes. Maybe get UCLA as well. But
yes, I agree. We have an accessibility crisis. But I mean, it feels like it's turning into, we talked about this on the podcast before, mobility as a service. Like what the frig is that? Like I never could wrap my head around what the people were talking about. And that's what it feels like abundance is becoming. Like when I did read the book, like, a good portion of the chapter is like, yeah, I agree with this. Like this makes sense. And it just felt like they might have taken it too far. Like by the end saying we want AVs everywhere. Yeah. Because it's not that simple, right? So it isn't the simplified rallying cry that they want it to be. But I think the basic thinking is still useful in some places. So, I feel like, you've really evolved and
no, I mean, I in housing, it's been fantastic and it's inspired the YIMBY movement, which is really great. I actually think some of these issues may be specific to transportation. And I guess I just want to say again, some of the ideas like in that playbook that came out a few weeks ago, they're not bad ideas in isolation, but guys, like, is this really the top priority for our transportation network right now, given what is happening with transit, given the massive subsidies that are everywhere for cars? Like, I just don't know that this is the pathway to get us to where we most need to go. That's my 60% mea culpa.
All right, so
I'm done.
I mean, when we talked about this like a year ago, I mean, I felt like you weren't even fully on board then. But I think,
oh really? Yeah.
I didn't think you were shouting from the rooftops like, "What a great book! Like, we need more of this." I felt like you were skeptical then, but you've shifted from skepticism to maybe hate is too strong. Or
no, it's not hate, but no, because again, the people are well intentioned who are pursuing it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take that away. They're not bad people, but I think it could be distracting and counterproductive for where we are in this current moment, at least in the United States.
Right. And the housing, I think, is easier. I mean, I think like no one's out there shouting abundance means we need more McMansions, right? Abundance in housing is not shifted to that. It's much more focused than, I mean, if you could link at the transportation, we talk about more housing near rail, more housing near transit stations, like stuff like that. But the transportation one it doesn't work quite as well. Like I think the high-speed rail is a great example, but we're doing that in like one place. Like it's not something that if we fix that problem is going to all of a sudden lead to like a national network of high-speed rail.
That's right.
That's not anywhere on any national politician's agenda at the moment.
That's right. That's right. And maybe it'll get back. And maybe this is exactly the conversation we need to be having 5 years from now when the Democrats are in control in Washington and we're back on track with, evidence-based policymaking. But that's just not where we are right now.
But maybe they're right. Now is the time to make sure those trains will be cheaper and that we can build a subway for less. There was that old report that talked about the price of a mile of subway in the U.S. versus all these different countries. And it was orders of magnitude different. And you're like, what the frig? And, I think you read more into that report, it explains pretty clearly why it's happening. So few of those problems are easily fixable, but some of them do relate to the environmental regulations. And
no, it does.
Those reports that have to be created. And I used to do this as a consultant. Like those were the kind of things we worked on, and they are just time consuming and expensive. So
sure.
At the same time, I understand why we have them. Like at the same time, I understand why we have public meetings in transportation. And it doesn't always lead to the best result because you have, dummies out there arguing for a design that makes our road less safe, and their vocal minority sort of winning sometimes. And we put out a worse design in terms of safety because of that process. But I know full well why we have it because, we've perpetuated some atrocities in the past with, urban freeways through neighborhoods, right? So we need that, but like, how do we do it better? I mean, maybe that's the question. Like, how do we still protect the environment, but do it in a way that doesn't litigate us into like a 10-year pause in every single project?
Yeah, I want to get to your topic, but I think maybe the last point I'll make is to say, I was speaking a couple weeks ago with a board member of a transit agency that's mid-sized, I would say, roughly. And she said, I'm just so disappointed in the abundance transportation discourse because all the ideas are really focused on like New York City and maybe like Boston and San Francisco. It's like, what the hell does it mean for my city, my agency? And I would say to those who really do believe in abundance, and I know we have some people who listen who do, I'd ask you this: what does abundance mean for Milwaukee's transit system as it's facing a 25% cut? When you have a clear answer, let me know. And
but that's a better
then it's
question
constructive.
to ask, right? I mean, look at your own context. Like, what would abundance mean for like your neighborhood or your city or your region? Like, it's a different question than I think the discourse is talking about.
Yeah, and the abundance transportation stuff that's come out has very much been focused on the biggest coastal cities, which is a whole other issue. And if we want, even if you want to see like transit get improved in New York City, if you want federal support, you've got to get more than just dollars from the biggest cities in the country support, or representatives from the biggest cities in the country supporting. We have to have something that goes deeper and further, and that's an area where I haven't seen as much.
Right, it's hard to have a national political movement around making subways cheaper.
Exactly, that's right. All right, enough on this for me. I have a shortage of abundance capacity left in me. So back over to you.
All right, so my evolution of thinking. So I used to be more skeptical of traffic cameras because no pun intended, they felt like a cop-out. If a street is dangerous, the real answer I always felt should be we need better design. We'd like narrower lanes or slower speeds, safer crossings, daylighting, protected whatever it is. Cameras felt like an admission that we were just going to leave the dangerous street in place, and then just punish people for behaving exactly the way the street is inviting them to behave. But I will say, over the course of our podcast over the last year, I've come around a bit. I mean, not because I think enforcement is better than design. I don't, but
it's because design, I've convinced you that they're good. Is that
well, design takes time, it takes money, it takes abundance, it takes political courage, and years of process. And meanwhile, people are still getting killed. If cameras can slow drivers down now, especially in the places we know people are getting hurt, or like around schools, it's hard to dismiss them as a cop-out. So maybe the key distinction is whether they're being used as a revenue tool or a safety tool. Because if they're scattered around just to fill budgets, that's not great. But if they are used for high injury corridors, for school zones, for dangerous intersections, for places where we have speeding, red light running, or it's clearly contributing to crashes, then am now come around to cameras being a kind of vital part of the safe systems approach. So I don't know, like that is something that I've definitely evolved on from our conversations. And that I think is the point of our podcast too, to sort of think about things from both sides.
Yeah, I think that is literally the point of our podcast, isn't it? Yeah. You could say both sides or even both ways, depending on how you want to put it.
Ways.
No, I've heard people say that enforcement plays no role in Vision Zero. I think that is fundamentally wrong. I think that automatic enforcement that like you're describing with the cameras is enormously beneficial, and you can see it. Like every city that's adopted them sees a big drop in not just in speeding, but also in recurrence of tickets. People change their behavior because they don't want to keep getting tickets. I think it's really great evidence that if you're not looking to maximize revenue, you get a lot of good out of it. But I also think like on the enforcement side, that's also why intelligent speed assist is a form of enforcement that can be really good. So I think you're right. And it's funny. This is a topic that I've been thinking a lot about recently. Because I think I mentioned to you before we started recording, I'm working on a story looking at what happened in Ontario when after Doug Ford, my villain of 2025, if you remember our end of year episode, last November banned every municipality in Ontario from using speed cameras to issue tickets. And across the board, every single place that has measured what before and after has found a huge spike in speeding, and including extreme speeding of like 15 miles per hour over the limit. It's very clear cause and effect. So yeah, I mean, look, this is like a blue sky debate. Like, enforcement is bad. We should be just, fixing every intersection and redoing every street. Sure. Yeah. Okay. That's great. And by 2070, we'll maybe get there if we're lucky.
Yeah. I think I've just become less convinced that we need to choose between design and cameras. Like cameras, especially in the near term, are one of the few tools that can change behavior quickly. And when I was on sabbatical in Australia, there were freaking cameras all over Sydney, and talking to people like that is why they told me they behave. But I was kind of more focused on the design. Like these streets were designed to be slower. Like they use things like design speed much differently. They use it to be self-enforcing. They use it as like the target design as opposed to like the minimum baseline design. So I was more focused on that side of it. But I mean, in retrospect, cameras are a big part of it. And they, I think there's reasons why they seem to be okay with having cameras everywhere in a way that we're often not in America or even Canada. But, when it comes to safety, it works. And I think as a researcher, I like to follow what the data tells me. Well, in that case, it's true.
Well, that's why you're in academia and not at the United States Department of Transportation. Did you see that 2 weeks ago, USDOT removed safety speed cameras from their list of proven countermeasures that work?
Proven safety countermeasures. They removed bicyclists entirely and everything to do with bicyclists.
Yep,
they
protected
removed
bike lanes
road
gone.
Diets.
Yeah, no, I think it's important to just make very clear. People who listen to this podcast probably know it, but there is, well, let me just put it this way. There's a well-known document called Countermeasures That Work that the federal government, USDOT, puts out every 5 years. I can't remember exactly. And it exhaustively looks at the research around various countermeasures to reduce crashes, and it awards a certain number of stars to each tactic based on what the research shows. And automatic speed cameras get 5 out of 5 stars, the maximum possible, showing it's like conclusively proven to reduce crashes. So Trump's team is just full of it when they say this is not proven.
And it's not just speed cameras either. Red light cameras. I mean, that's part of it too.
Yeah, bus lane cameras, bike lane cameras, which you talked about last episode. Like, cameras work, and no, I think they're great, and I actually think that, and also like I don't understand. There's like a hesitation among some of the Vision Zero people to acknowledge how beneficial they are, because I think they just don't want to talk about enforcement at all, because tickets cost money, blah blah blah. But I don't know, like a lot of those folks who say that, they care so much about equity and about supporting people who are minorities. Like we didn't talk about this so far, but a camera isn't going to examine the color of the skin of the driver in the way that a police officer can.
I mean, yes, there's less of those problems that are going to crop up, but at the same time, the types of roadways we often put through lower income minority neighborhoods are some of the ones that are most designed for high speeds, but we toss on like a low speed limit. So there is some bias in that, where like
sure, but I'm going to push back, Wes, against that, because the alternative of not putting in speed cameras in low-income minority neighborhoods is you are resigning people there to die.
Yes,
and you totally already know as well as I do that crash death rates are much higher in low-income minority neighborhoods for that reason. So
yes,
it is. I would say it is actually the morally just thing to do a lot of the time to put in cameras there, because you are literally saving more lives doing so than if you put them in more affluent, whiter areas of the city.
Yes, I totally agree. But I know at the same time, I biked in on a different route than I normally do today. And in the poor neighborhood, it's like a 4-lane, there's no bike lanes, there's no sidewalks, there's no median, but I go the same street through the rich neighborhood has all of those amenities, including street trees. So you just have to drive slower in the richer neighborhood. Yeah. Even though the speed limit's the same. So if you put traffic cameras in both of them, like the people that actually get fined are going to be the people who are in those neighborhoods. So there is a problem there. I don't know. I mean, the other thing I'd say too is that I just don't want engineers to fall back on what we used to say. It's like the design is fine. We just need to have more enforcement, or we need better education. Like that, I felt like what I was protecting against, like engineers using that as the cop-out, because we still do need like better designed streets and neighborhoods and all that. But the cameras can help.
Yeah, the cameras can absolutely help. It's a meaty topic. It's one that I care a lot about. I've got a story coming out. I guess this episode will come out before that story is going to publish. But I'm glad to have you on Team Automatic Enforcement. I think it's the right team to be on.
Do I get like a T-shirt or something? Like what happens next?
No, we've talked about creating some swag at some point. We can create one. Team Automatic Enforcement. So didn't someone create like a shirt of like Fargo and Singapore or something, like a design, when we had that episode talking about those two cities that we visited?
I didn't see that, but I did create us some ugly Christmas sweaters and a Hanukkah one as well that I shared with you. But
well, maybe the holiday seasons are a few months away, but maybe we'll get creative between now and then.
We should start with maybe like some stickers. I'm not sure we need to jump to
I don't know.
Sweaters.
Let us know if you want swag, friendly listener. Please tell us, and maybe we can get you something.
I think we need someone to like create like a beer or drink look both ways.
A look both ways beverage.
Yeah, because it's about that time.
It is about that time for rail drinks. You're right.
Yeah.
All right. What is rail drinks? You should explain.
So rail drinks is typically how we end every episode, where we toast each other and pick our own drink and try to explain maybe why we chose that, and say happy trails and move on with our days.
It is true. And given that it's 1 year, do you have some, as Christopher Walken said on SNL, champagne for us?
Kinda. So
I have a crystal glass and stuff. Like I never even used this glass before. I got it for my wedding.
So what I have is the Miller High Life, the champagne of beer. We had agreed that we'd both.
Oh my God, that's so on brand for you.
And when I went to the liquor store last night, I saw this 6-pack of the Miller High Life.
That's
the
beautiful.
Champagne of beers.
That's just beautiful. I'm really proud to be drinking with you right now. But I will say, in all seriousness, it's been a whole lot of fun over the last year. I'll say that to you, Wes. I really enjoyed it. But also, I know a lot of folks have been with us for the entire year listening and or watching these episodes, and we really appreciate it. I don't think I'll speak for myself. I did not know what was going to happen when we began this, and this has become a more real thing. I think with a bigger audience than we expected, and it's been great. So we really appreciate everyone who's been a part of the journey.
A bigger audience, but also like a thoughtful audience, a kind audience, like the people that reach out, the people like we met like in Washington, D.C. when we had our in-person rail drinks, or the people we've met at conferences. I mean, people will come up to me, like one of them last talks I gave, I was up in the middle of nowhere, Washington State, Wenatchee, Washington, and someone just comes up. I love the podcast. And they said something like, I think they said I'm more personable than you are, but then they told me they would have said the same thing to you if they were seeing you in person. They would have told you that you were more personable than me. So I was like, I thank you, I guess. I'm not sure how to take that.
That's a really awkward thing. Why would you say that to someone?
I don't know. I was like, all right, man, thanks.
Yeah, someone said to me that I was much better looking than you, but they didn't actually say they would have said that to you. No, I'm kidding.
No, but people have been so kind, and it's nice that people care, and like the feedback we're getting is thoughtful. Like they're telling us like different examples, I'm learning from the audience, as much as I'm learning from you. So maybe that can be a future segment, is what we've learned from our audience.
Yeah, no, we really do appreciate the questions and comments you guys give. We just got some today that aren't able to get into on this episode, but we will soon. I don't know. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm excited for year 2. So with that, Wes,
cheers.
Cheers.
Wow, I've not had one of these in a long, long time.
It hits the spot, doesn't it? Or hits something. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's been around since 1903.
That's
champagne of beers.
That's beautiful.
Miller High Life.
So yeah,
if you're watching live, have a drink too. Somebody's asking on our chat if they can. Yeah, of course. Cheers.
You'll need our permission, by all means.
Need our permission. It's 5:00 somewhere, including where I am. So,
well, it's 7:00 where I am, which is more toward dinner than happy hour, but I'll still take it. I think that brings us to the end of the episode. Is that right?
Sorry, I'm having a drink.
Having too much fun with your beer there. But thank you to everyone who has joined us on this episode as well. The next one will be on Tuesday, August 4th at 6 p.m. ET. That's when we're going to be doing the live stream recording, if you'd care to join us then. But between now and then, all of our episodes are available on lookbothwayspodcast.com. You can also contact us, send us messages, ask us questions there. And if you have a chance to leave a rating, we are very grateful for it. And with that, I will simply say, Wes, fun as always. I'll see you in a couple weeks.
All right. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.